A Kenyan by birth, Dr. McKenna Marangu is president and co-founder of SIDEA, an organization dedicated to addressing the needs of children dying each day from untreated surgical conditions such as appendicitis, burns, and traumatic injury, caused by the overwhelming void of neurosurgeons, pediatric and plastic surgeons in sub-Saharan Africa. Although young in years, Dr. Marangu's name has become synonymous with achieving the impossible for children.
Welcome to Landmark Difference Makers, where we interview people making a remarkable difference around the world. Get ready to be inspired. Let's jump in.
Hello, everyone. My name is Seamus Ford, and I want to welcome you to the Landmark Difference Makers podcast. We're honored to welcome Craig Hacche, who is the founder and executive director of Answer Africa, an organization committed to equipping and empowering young African leaders to address the continent's most urgent challenges. With a background in international development, Craig brings a bold and personal commitment to creating sustainable African-led solutions in health, education, and economic opportunity. From building partnerships across borders to championing grassroots leadership, Craig is answering the question at the heart of what I think life is about: what difference can one life make? Craig, I really want to welcome you. Thank you.
Hey, Seamus, thanks for the introduction. Nice to meet you.
I want to give you an opportunity to share about Answer Africa in more detail, but I know that you co-founded it with your late wife, and I think it would be fitting just to hear a little bit about her and have her be represented in our conversation.
Sure, absolutely. McKenna was born in Kenya and raised there by her grandmother until age 6, and immigrated to the United States at age 6. Raised in Kankakee, Illinois, which is a suburb just south of Chicago.
We call it Kankakee.
Kankakee. I messed it up. And arguably became the first or second Black female plastic surgeon in America. And we used to joke, born in a mud hut, made of cow dung and dirt and a grass roof. And coming to the United States and having those types of accomplishments was extraordinary. She attended medical school in MCV, or Medical College of Virginia, in Richmond, Virginia. And that's actually literally across the street from the White House of the Confederacy. And she was a Black female in the early 80s going to medical school right across the street from the White House of the Confederacy. After she got her medical degree, she went on to do a 5-year trauma surgery residency in Newark at UMDMJ, which is the University of Medical and Dental College in New Jersey. I'm told the Knife and Gum Club was very, very active there. So if you've ever watched The Pit or ER, she at the time she said they were working well over 100 hours a week, literally sleeping on the couches there between shifts. And after that, she ended up in plastic surgery, basically because of her experiences in Africa. During her residency, she coordinated for 5 years, a number of events at the United Nations under a nonprofit she formed called SIDEA, which actually means help in Swahili. And so every year for about 5 years, she'd coordinate these big events. She spoke at the United Nations. Dignitaries from all over the world would come. Lionel Richie, Stevie Wonder, senators would attend the events. And out of her work there, she ended up receiving the African Development Foundation Award for Outstanding Achievement in Service to Children in 1993, which was awarded by First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton. And I'd really like to read you something on that award. I'm just going to read this here. It talks, a Kenyan by birth, Dr. McKenna Marangu is president and co-founder of SIDEA, an organization dedicated to addressing the needs of children dying each day from untreated surgical conditions such as appendicitis, burns, and traumatic injury, caused by the overwhelming void of neurosurgeons, pediatric and plastic surgeons in sub-Saharan Africa. Although young in years, Dr. Marenga's name has become synonymous with achieving the impossible for children. A board-certified surgeon, she has gathered together physicians and laypersons to give training and on-site care. Her experiences as an African Kenyan-born woman and with SIDEA really gave her firsthand knowledge of the importance of empowering African leaders with the financial security to develop sustainable African-led solutions in health, education, and economic opportunities, and that it was important to develop long-term relationships rather than short-term interventions in that type of work. That's a brief synopsis of where she came from.
Well, and no doubt inadequate to capture just truly extraordinary woman. Craig, what led you both to create Answer Africa?
Well, she, with her significant experience in nonprofit work in Africa, we were actually we were watching American Idol one night during their Idol Gives Back, and they were talking about basically how there was a malaria problem. They were talking about malaria in Africa, and basically 3,000 children were dying each day in Africa, one every 30 seconds from malaria, over 1 million per year. So we've been on this Zoom now for 10 minutes. That means 20 children have died from malaria. And we initially kicked up with delivering pharmaceuticals. We would access these, what they call the MAP pharmaceutical packs. They cost like $1,000 each pack, and in that pack was about $30,000 to $60,000 worth of medical supplies. And I remember in September of 2006 going with McKenna to LAX and dropping her off with 10 of these big packs. And they were all pre-packaged and certified. Basically, they were medications that pharmaceutical manufacturers would donate to missions such as this. And we, so her first trip was supplying the medications. When she came back, unfortunately, that month, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 3. So alongside that journey, which is almost 9 years, we continued to develop Answer Africa. And I remember one day I would drive her to chemotherapy every Friday morning. We'd leave San Clemente at like 5 a.m. to beat the traffic. We'd get down to San Diego early, and we'd go to a hotel for breakfast. And one day we were in there eating breakfast, and there was this cell phone convention happening. And we were trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to name our nonprofit? And there's a cell phone convention, as I said, and then out of the blue, I said, well, why not? And on one of the bags it said like, answer the call or answer this, and I thought, Answer Africa. And it's one of those things that like goes ding, and that's how we came up with the name. And so backing up a bit, it was an anti-malaria focus. And at the time, and still today, a lot of people ask the question, well, here we live in the United States, we don't deal with malaria, or Europe doesn't deal with malaria. Why are there some locations in the world that is dying from malaria, that deals with malaria so significantly? And basically, the world has largely eliminated malaria through, number one, extensive public health infrastructure. environmental modification like draining wetlands, effective vector control, which is insecticides, and most importantly, increased economic wealth, which reduces the living conditions that allow mosquitoes to breed.
Mm.
And it was during these first missions that we were taking people from the states, groups of 5 to 10, and we figured out in the States, people were donating money and mosquito nets were being sold for about $10 a net. And McKenna figured out how to get the same net for $1 each in Kenya. She figured that out. And so we would get nets by the thousands. And we get in Range Rovers, and we'd go deep into small little villages in very rural areas of Kenya. And over 8 years, we delivered over 400,000 mosquito nets.
Wow.
And during that time, I started to witness firsthand, really, the incredible productiveness of these people and how they would get up every day and just gut it out. And I started to wonder how such incredibly productive people could be so poor. It didn't go together. And in McKenna, she knew that that to develop the importance of empowering African leaders with the financial security to develop sustainable African-led solutions in health, education, and economic opportunities. She knew the importance of that and the importance of developing those long-term relationships to make that happen. But as I share, my experience was, well, why is these people, they're so ingenious and hardworking, and yet they're so poor? And I would always leave with that thought process, and I'll get into that a little bit later about what I found in that area.
Well, I think one of the questions I had, and I'm going to ask it now, for people that aren't aware, USAID was recently cut, and that has led to a lot of development money being frozen and a lot of initiatives being stopped in their tracks. And how is that impacting the work that you're doing?
Well, it's now a huge focus of the purpose of our work. They're starving now, and how do you get education when you're starving? And so a lot of our work now is all about developing sustainable African-led solutions in health, education, and economic opportunities, basically there in Kenya. We're working, we just had, as a result of an SELP project just completed in late December, we raised over
for people listening, that's a landmark program called the Self-Expression
and Leadership Program. We raised over $8,000, and with that $8,000, we were able to make a tremendous amount of impact there in Kenya. We partnered with the Kakuma refugee camp, and there we had 4 separate events actually in Kenya. One of them was the Kakuma refugee camp. 480 children in Kakuma alone were fed with a Christmas meal with protein source. In a children's home in Eldoret, we fed 65 children. In Kakuma, in the refugee camp, we partnered with the Scorpion Control Center and Godfrey, who was interviewed by you a few weeks ago. And we provided free internet Wi-Fi access stations in 5 different areas. Many of these refugees, of which there's about 300,000, they're all coming down from Sudan, South Sudan, Congo, and they're in the refugee camp. Many of them haven't spoken to their family in years. And we were able to provide free Wi-Fi stations, and hundreds of refugees were able to communicate with their family. We had cultural events there. Communities from the Congo and, as I said, Sudan, South Sudan, Somalia, and Uganda got together and celebrated and did various dances, cultural dances. We had scorpion and snake awareness training. There's a huge challenge with scorpion and snake bites in the camp. And there's various types of, I learned this, there's various types of scorpions that some are venomous, some aren't. And one would get stung and they'll get to a hospital and they won't know which type it was, and they'll give them, remediation venom or something, and they'll die because they gave the wrong type of medicine. So that's so what we're doing now is we're focusing on long-term sustainable projects. We built after McKenna passed, we partnered with an organization called Hearts of Fire. The founder of Hearts of Fire was Joe Pecoraro, who was a vascular surgeon out of Florida, and he was my wife's chief resident during her surgical residency. And they also formed their nonprofit in 2006. And they're in the process of building a hospital. So we partnered with them and have completed that hospital. It's now level 4, full surgical capabilities. We just got it licensed at level 4, full surgical capabilities. We financed the McKenna Maternity Center there, which is a 20,000 square foot, 2-story facility, full maternity capable, C-sections and everything. We financed what I call the McKenna Center of Champions, which is a large 3-acre facility with a soccer pitch. They call it football over there. A basketball court, tennis court, and classrooms for 400 children. We also built a tech center, which is about a 1,500 square foot room with tables and chairs and 20 laptops and video screens. And next door is another similar sized room with podcast equipment. And we're partnering with actually the U.S. Embassy now. They have a van that drives around with they call it a tech van and 3D printers. And we're teaching STEM training for youth there, science, technology, engineering, and math. We're investing in the education and the infrastructure there in Kenya. We have a youth scholarship program now. We're sponsoring 20 youth through grade school, through college or trade school. We have what we call the McKenna Malika Project, which is boreholes basically for fresh water supply in these remote villages in the Mara and other areas. Very often, the villages of say 1,000 people, and the women every day will walk up to 10 miles with 2-3 gallon yellow, they call them jerry cans, and they'll dig down in a dry riverbed to a little rivulet of water and fill the water, and fill the jerry cans. And in dry riverbeds, because it's one of the largest drought periods in the last 10 years in northeastern Africa. And then they'll walk back with those 2-3 gallon cans, and the next day do the same thing again and again and again and again. So we go right into the village and we drill down up, over 200 meters. That's over 650 feet. And we'll put a pump there and a solar panel. So during the day, it'll pump water out to a big 5,000 gallon tank that we put there, and we'll pump the water out during the day in the sunshine. And the area where it used to be dry and barren we used to call like crispy earth is now green with like
Mhm.
these atomic sized cabbages because the land's so fertile, there's just access to water is needed.
I want to go
Um,
back. I mean, the accomplishments are really jaw-dropping. And I want to go back to something that you um, have said multiple times about McKenna's concern for sustainability, your concern for sustainability. And I think it'd be useful for people just to understand why sustainability is so important. People have a lot of pictures in their mind of, what various places in Africa are like. And,
hmm.
what you describe, I think, doesn't match a lot of preconceptions that people may have.
Yeah, by no means am I an expert on this, but we define socioeconomic sustainability in Africa requires us to be aware, really, of our own deeply rooted Western European stereotypical narratives about Africa and to address those deep-seated inequalities in health and education and infrastructure. Um, these narratives, and again, I'm not an expert on this. When I started to witness it, when I started to witness these incredibly productive and ingenious people, why are they so poor? There's a narrative in the research I did. There was a narrative that was started over 400 years ago. It's a Eurocentric narrative um, that they're unproductive people, and this narrative was designed and specifically put in place in order to justify the colonization of the continent and the extraction of both natural resources and human resources. And this narrative continues to this day. All the resources of Africa are robbed. They're removed. They're removed. Trillions of dollars every year of resources are removed from Africa. And then people like me wonder why are they so poor? And I used to think, well, and it's like and so I did a little bit of research, reading various books, on some of this, and what I found is I go straight into how do we fix the problem, and I liken it to a friend of mine. I helped a friend of mine replace a window about a month ago, and they had these strong arms, those iron bars that are clamped to the stucco. And I brought my tool bag and went up to there, and I grabbed my tools to remove the iron bars, but they wouldn't work on the iron bars because the screws can only tighten.
Mm.
You actually, and so the tool bag that I knew to use to put the iron bars on wouldn't allow me to remove the iron bars. I literally had to get a grinder and cut a notch so I could jam a screwdriver in there and turn it to the left. I liken that because as a white person growing up with white privilege, I grew up in a different world. I grew up in a world where I have this toolbox, and I'm to use that toolbox to do these things with that toolbox, but that toolbox wasn't designed to remove those iron bars. And so that takes a lot of internal thinking and awareness on my side. And I've only scratched the surface. Every day goes by, I find myself doing something that I would consider racist. I don't do it deliberately. It's just a way of being that I have. And I'm only one white person in 350 million people in America, you know, and that's a tough conversation to have with myself.
Well, the conversation that I hear in the background is you have a real commitment to just be honest about the circumstances that you're dealing with, and uh, this massive inequality that persists over all these years. A lot of people, might hear these, the data that you've given, the facts that you've presented, and um, feel bad for a moment and move on with their day. In fact, I think it's fair to say most people do that. You've got a sense of responsibility that's very clear, not just to do something, but also to look uh, rigorously at what what's the historical sociological historical context that keeps this in place, and tell the truth about it. What is it for you that has this be so important?
Just from a humanity perspective,
Hmm.
I was working with Godfrey just before Christmas, and he's in the refugee camp, and he informed me of a youth who had a medical issue. Um, Two youths that had medical issues. One that got in a car accident and his teeth were all busted up, and he couldn't eat anymore, and he needed medical work. Another one had another issue in a private area, and just money would providing money allowed them to access medical care and get those things corrected. Had they not had access to, if I had not provided that money, they wouldn't have been corrected because they don't have any money. And Godfrey made a statement to me after that. He said, "Thank you for giving voice to the voiceless." And we live, I live here in Southern California, and there's 300,000 refugees over there that, you know what? They live as if the world doesn't even know they're there. We're going to make a change in that area. We're looking to impact that. And the stopping of US aid is horrendous. It's just not right.
Well, the last thing you said, you can't ignore it. My question is leading to, people that are listening to this podcast are going to self-select and listen to this episode, and they're going to hear you talking. And, one could presume that there's some level of interest, but, until there's a real commitment, there's no action. And what would you offer to somebody who wants to have an impact here and hasn't yet stepped into, hasn't taken action?
Well, I'd invite them to go to our website. I'd invite them to donate. I'd invite them to come with us on one of our missions, um, and actually experience it. We go a number of times every year. I'm going this March with two team members who are actually on this call, on this Zoom, Jackie London and Dee Mock. And then there's another team going in August. Every year we take a team of about 20 people, um, and give free medical care to about 5,000 patients in a period of about 6 days. You don't have to be a doctor or a nurse to go. You just got to be someone willing to do what needs to be done when it needs to be done.
Mm.
Whether it's crowd control or food supply or move chairs, but you experience. It's an experience that'll change your life, and it'll be hard to not come home and not want to make a difference there. And we got to get this conversation out to the world.
Well, there's another part of this, which is, you don't, I mean, you're taking very seriously the issues, and your sense of responsibility is very clear, and um, you're not trying to protect yourself from the gravity of what people are dealing with. But I also have this experience of there's joy over there with you and what you're doing.
That joy comes from service.
Hmm.
In service to making an impact and making a difference, and treating human beings as human beings. And this narrative that's been around for over 400 years is BS. It's just designed to rape and pillage and steal, and then it continues to do it to this day.
What inspires you about the people that you've had an opportunity to work with?
Their heart, their sincerity, heart and their sincerity. They are, there's nothing fake about them, about these people, nothing fake. They are there. They are there. And when I say there, I mean, they're present. It isn't like going to a barista and grabbing a coffee. No, they are present. And they're so gracious. They're so gracious and humble and just pleasure. Incredible human beings.
One of the things that I wanted to give you an opportunity to do is talk about you talked about the trip coming up in March. I know that, you're at the 20th anniversary, and I believe you have a video that has been created to celebrate that also talks about what's next.
Absolutely. Can we play the video?
Yeah, for sure.
My name is Craig Hacche. 20 years ago, my wife, Dr. Jean Ann McKenna Morangu, and I founded Answer Africa. This year marks 20 years since that beginning. And it's something we're choosing to celebrate, not for a moment, but throughout the entire year, by continuing the work that started it all. McKenna was born in Kenya, and Africa was not just a part of her story. It shaped how she saw the world, how she understood responsibility, and how she defined justice. While McKenna was still a medical student, she visited a small hospital in a very rural part of Kenya. There she met a 9-year-old boy named Kamau. Kamau had been badly burned in a fire, and as there was no access to proper medical care, his injuries had gone untreated for years. His muscles had contracted so severely, his chin was fused to his chest. He couldn't lift his head. Even going to school became a challenge, and he had been living that way for over 4 years. McKenna could not walk away from that. She organized a team of surgeons to return to Kenya, and Kamau received the surgery he so desperately needed. His body healed, but more importantly, his life opened back up. He went back to school. He rejoined his community. He had a future again. What stayed with McKenna wasn't just Kamau's transformation. It was also the hundreds of children that had to be turned away. That was the moment McKenna understood something fundamental. One rescue is compassion. Building responsible systems is justice. McKenna believed the most powerful solution wasn't dependency, it was capacity. She dedicated her life to training local doctors, strengthening medical infrastructure, and ensuring that communities could care for themselves long after aid arrived. That belief became the foundation of Answer Africa, which we founded in 2006. Our early work focused on fighting malaria, delivering over 400,000 mosquito nets to some of the most remote communities in Kenya. But very quickly, we learned something important. Health is never just about medicine, it's about opportunity. It's about education, access, connection, and trust. For 20 years, Answer Africa has worked alongside communities, not above them, by listening first, building together, and focusing on long-term sustainability. Today, that same approach continues through programs like Bridge, bringing together health, education, technology, and local leadership to strengthen communities from within. This work is steady, it's thoughtful, and it's built to last. McKenna passed away in 2015, and what we created together exists beyond our mundane reality. McKenna and I believed when work is rooted in purpose, it continues through the very people who carry it forward. What began as an idea in 2006 has become a 20-year commitment to humanity. As Answer Africa enters its next chapter, we are building toward a $1 million fundraising vision designed to fuel long-term socioeconomic sustainability across the communities we serve. We view 2026 not as a finish line, but as a foundation, a year to cultivate, to harvest momentum, and to grow lasting impact together. This is an official invitation for you to celebrate with us by donating, by sharing our story, and by helping expand the reach of this work. McKenna believed deeply in bridges between people, between communities, between what is and what's possible. If McKenna were here today, she wouldn't ask for your sympathy. McKenna would ask you to participate, to believe in people, to invest in solutions that endure, and to help carry this work forward together. So as we mark this milestone, we do so with gratitude and with immense intention. Thank you for being a part of the journey. Thank you for helping us continue the work, and thank you for building the bridge forward.
I have to say that is a beautiful video, and it's just deeply moving the way that you keep the legacy of her life moving forward. It's just something that, if you're listening to this on audio, find it on YouTube and play that video. It's extraordinary.
That was put together by Saleh in the Kakuma refugee camp.
Mm,
That's how talented these people are.
mm.
Extraordinary.
Well, you talked earlier about what $8,000 was able to accomplish, what $1 million could do at this point. It seems like it really would have an exponential potential to
Huge
forward.
impact. I mean, with everything we've done so far, over the last 8 years, since we kicked it back up, we've invested over $2 million. And that $2 million is what's developed the infrastructure we have in place, the maternity center, the schools, the tech center. We've invested in avocado tree development with farmers because avocados are fetching a good price. Small businesses like cow and dairy businesses. The dollar goes a long way in Africa.
You mentioned a self-expression leadership program earlier, and one of the through lines of our interviews is we interviews participated with Landmark in some way. And I'm just wondering, for anybody listening, is there something that you draw upon from what you've gotten in participating in Landmark programs that allows you to be as effective as you are?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll say access to an awareness that I guess I always knew I had, but I didn't know that I know that I had. And the transformational principles, like there's a set of actions that exist to produce every result, and they exist today. It's just a matter of taking actions. Some will work, some won't. But every action we take, even if it fails, we're one step closer, because now we know it doesn't work. It's removing the drama, and I still have a lot of drama in my life, but until I catch it, I get hooked by stuff too. Someone says something and I get upset, and then I'm on a runaway train with my upset until I catch myself. It's that opportunity to catch oneself and then choose. It happened last night. I got defensive in a conversation, and I was on a runaway train, and it took a while to catch myself. But it's those principles, and having a project and weekly, stats on the project, performance objectives, creating a team of people and communicating with them and hold each other accountable. These are all basic principles. I mean, I truly, I am where I am today because I did the forum in 1990. I was not an aware person before that. Nope. Didn't want anything to do with it. No. But it opened up the world for me. A world that I resisted, didn't want any part of, because I felt intimidated by it. I still do. I still think I'm a loser.
I appreciate you answering that question, because one of our commitments with this podcast is to inspire other people to make a difference. And, that's definitely part of the ethos of the community around Landmark. But it's also this, real willingness to, look at a situation and deal with reality on the ground, but also really come from a place of what's possible, independent of what, the past would tell you is possible.
They come from responsibility in the matter. How am I responsible for that? It's easy to do nothing. It's easy. I mean, human beings, we don't, it's easy to do nothing.
Yeah.
But to see something and then step in takes courage.
Well, I really appreciate your time, and there's one last question that I'm going to ask you, which we ask everybody on the podcast, and that is, we're having this conversation now, but 100 years from now, none of us will be here. And I know that so much of this for you is about McKenna's legacy. What do you want people to say about you when you're no longer here?
He made a difference. I'm not looking at my name on anything. Really, what I'd like to leave an example for people that they can make a difference. I might never see everything we're working together come together. I know there's 1 trillion years before me, and then there'll be 30 trillion years after me, and then there's me. There's me. I'm not even a blip on that radar. But I can take that, I can hit that vector such that arc of justice over time prevails. That's what I'm about. In spite of me sometimes.
Well, I really must tell you, this has just been a real privilege, and your work, your dedication, your authentic commitment, your willingness to tell the truth, not just about the situation, but about yourself, to be more effective and having an impact, is just a true inspiration. Thank you. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you for the opportunity to share. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Landmark Difference Makers. If you're inspired by what you heard and you want to learn more about Landmark's programs or explore upcoming episodes, Visit landmarkforumnews.com to find resources, event details, and more stories of people making extraordinary impact around the globe. If you are already a part of the Landmark community, check out the Landmark subscription, designed to provide ongoing support in creating a life you love. Visit landmarkworldwide.com to learn more. Until next time, keep creating, keep contributing,